Hey, welcome to Radically Alive Women Agecast, Clare Dubois. I'm really glad you're here.
It's lovely to be here.
And I admit I'm also a bit scared you're here because you have a voice and my fear is not a problem. It just tells me, yeah, I'm here with a woman that has a voice and I long for that in the world, to hear women speak. And when I reached out to you, thanks to friends that said, hey, you've got to speak with Clare Dubois, you pointed out that planetary regeneration is not really your topic right now. It's more personal regeneration. And I would love to hear from you a bit more about where you're at and what's moving in you, what's alive in you.
Well, I don't think anybody expected me to step down from Treesisters. Like, I think, the persona I had in the world was a very strong one as the founder and the front person of a global women's movement. And I thought that was for the rest of my life. I think everybody thought that was for the rest of my life. And I didn't see it coming, what happened. And it was interesting because I was ill for a long time. So I was working flat out for like 12 years and I founded Treesisters. I co-founded it with a wonderful woman, my dance teacher called Bernadette back in England. And we did not know what we were doing. It was like I was given this brief from life in a car crash, and it was just huge and enormous and frightening. And I had zero experience. And yet I couldn't argue with the fact that women understanding the nature of their own bodies as nature and rebuilding that relationship with the natural world to the extent that you would want to protect and want to nurture and want to reforest, which is what we were doing, tropical reforestation, made sense. I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to try. But I didn't manage to do it in any way that was healthy for myself. I carried vastly too much responsibility, and I was running the pain of the planet through my body on a daily basis because I didn't know how to separate from, essentially environmental catastrophe, which is what we're going through. And if you're in the world of trees, we funded the planting of, I think, 24 million trees by the time I resigned. But we lose between 14 and 40 million trees a day. So I didn't feel like I scratched the arse of the issue, frankly. But, what I was really trying to do was help women, was work with women, which we did beautifully, actually. And it was amazing and wonderful. And I miss it terribly. But I couldn't stop. Like, I couldn't stop. There was just this constant drive inside me, partly despair what was going on with the planet, and partly because I was driving over the top of a vast amount of trauma. So there was these big splits and fractures inside myself, and they were all suppressed down. And I was doing the self-validatory dance over the top of it, where it's like, unconsciously, we will do anything not to feel the stuff that our nervous systems and our minds and our bodies basically said, that's too much, can't handle it, gonna suppress it. And about 2 years before I left, I went and had an astrological reading, and he was like, no, let's do tarot. And I was like, no, let's do astrology. He said, no, let's just do tarot. And we did this tarot spread, and he was just like, wow, well, this whole spread was major arcana. And he said, you don't have any choice. This is going to be taken away from you. You are going to lose everything. And you might as well quit now because it's going to be taken away from you. And if you don't, it's going to be really gnarly. And you have to stop everything. Your body needs rest. Like, you have to stop everything. And if you don't, you will be stopped. And I'm like, no, that's not happening anytime soon. Like, not a chance. Let's ask a different question. So we asked a different question. Did another spread. And he was like, well, you might as well quit now because you're going to lose everything. We did 3 spreads. They all said the same thing. And I didn't listen because I couldn't comprehend not doing Treesisters. It was me. It was what I was for. It was my life purpose. It was the answer. You know, it's like, oh my God. Anyway, so what he said came true. It was horrible. It was a difficult ending, and I got very sick. I, you know, it was touch and go for me. It was like complete physiological breakdown, all systems, and which turned out to be severe heavy metal poisoning, pesticide poisoning, mold poisoning. I didn't know I had the mold. And so I was starving. I'd gone into cellular defense mechanism, or cell danger response, essentially, where the cells basically shut down. And they'd been shut down probably from the majority of my life because I'd been poisoned living in a home with lead pipes that had severe mold. And I just hadn't realized why I couldn't get rid of the metal, and it was because of the mold. So I'd had an endocrine collapse and a digestive collapse, and my mind was on it. It was like not all right. My brain was full of metal. And one by one, my systems were going down, and I was still working 60, 70-hour weeks over the top of it. And so life just went smack. We're taking you out. And complete incapacitation. Had to leave, resign. And right at the point of letting the board know that I was going to have to go because my health was taking me out, I decided to make a journey back to my childhood home in England. I live in California. And my father was a headmaster. It was a boys' boarding school. I lived in a boys' boarding school. And he was part of a paedophile ring. And I was one of the kids that was part of the paedophile ring when I was growing up. And stuff went down in that school that I'd never been able to go back. And I'd just never been able to go back and address it. And it turned out that there was that it was now a girls' and boys' school, and that there was a headmistress instead of a headmaster. And it was safe for me to reach out to this woman and say, I need to come to your personal quarters. And this is what happened. But the school actually burnt down after my father was removed. And I need to come and see the rebuilt building. I need to put new memories in where the old ones were. She was amazing. She wrote back and said, whatever you need, however we can help. Like, she was just an angel for me. And so we went back to England, and we went back to the school, and she took me around, and she let me go into her quarters on my own. And then she sat me down and she said, Claire, I want to go to the police. It was never reported, was it? What happened to you? And I said, no. She said, I want to go to the police. And this is relevant to your question, by the way, not just a long ramble. And I was like, there's no point. He's dead. He died 20, however many years ago. And she was like, no, there is a point, because they're looking for the pedophiles of the 70s and 80s, and other kids will have been involved. And, what happened to him afterwards? And I was like, yeah, he went on to the next school, and he went on to the next school because nobody reported him because of the fear of hurting the school's reputation. And so she told the paedophile division of the Northumberland police, and I got to speak to them. And at the time when she said it, I was just like, okay, whatever, I'll talk to them, but it's not going to change anything. And then the day before I actually got to speak to them, I collapsed. And I couldn't understand what was going on. My body stopped working, and we were up on a mountain in the Lake District, and I started falling, and Mark caught me. And I went into a state of terror. And the terror was that I was going to be caught and I was going to be found out. And I realized that I'd been carrying the monster that my father was as me all my life. And even though psychologically I'd been aware of that possibility, I couldn't access it. I couldn't get to it until the first person in my life, which was Kate, the headmistress, said, "What happened to you was a crime. It was a crime." And her support, and then the incoming energy of the police, gave my system enough resource to spit the lie up, which was I was the monster. And the reason I tell you that story is because that moment when I suddenly, like inside me, I was able to shift from I'm the monster to, oh my God, no, my dad's the monster. Oh my God, there it is. I've got the key turned, in comes the support. All my self-validatory behavior that was the striving over the top of the sickness dissolved in that moment. And then my body was like, I can't do anymore. And that was it. That was the end of Clare, the environmentalist that I had been for however many years, like probably 15, 16 years. She left the building. And what took its place was, and now it's you, and now we rebuild this body. Like we remove like it's time for trauma work, like that. The past needs to be removed from your body, and then we're going to build a new self. We're going to build a new life on the top of an actual congruent foundation, not this just living over the top of all of this fracturing and all of this trauma. So that's what happened. I mean, I turned on a dime. It was gone. Where this insane push had been was complete flatline. I would not have believed it was possible, like to turn a corner and it just gone. So now, I live with my husband, Mark, who's another avid environmentalist. And he's like, do you want to come to this? Do you want to come to that? Do you want to listen to this? No, 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 no. Like there is nothing in me that can engage environmentally. Nothing, unless I'm in my garden, making soil, growing my food. That I can totally do. Being in nature, have to be in nature, need to be in the trees, still in the trees. But I can't engage environmentally. It's dropped me so deeply into my own process of recovery and healing that I'm back where I was before I became an environmentalist, which is essentially, this is a consciousness shift issue for humanity. This is our psyches made visible, what we're doing. The repair job is epic epigenetic trauma work that's required in order for us to defracture. And we cannot create a coherent world unless there's coherent selves. So I'm doing that work. And I actually feel now that what I'm doing with the trauma work, it's easily the deepest work of my life, and it's easily the most important work of my life, because I'm in the stuff of how do you heal a human being? How do you heal a human being to the extent that then what is going to arise through them from that point is only going to be an expression of coherence and health? Treesisters was absolutely beautiful, but it wasn't healthy because of the insane hard work that it was. If you burn yourself out doing what you're doing, you're not in balance. There was no balance. And, I can understand that trying to do something through feminine principles in a patriarchal world that demands measurables is never going to allow you to operate the way that you would need to operate to be in integrity with the wisdom of living systems. We couldn't do it. We tried everything. We couldn't do it. I think that world's up ahead where it might be possible, but I didn't manage it. That's my very long answer to your question.
Thank you. I deeply resonate with this necessity to be fully in integrity. It's like the revolution actually happens here first. And what comes up for me is also, I heard you in another interview speak about depatriarchalizing yourself or something like that. It's like really, it's not about healing patriarchy, because patriarchy cannot be healed. It's like, it's more about removing yourself from it. That's how I would see it. It's like when women really remove themselves from patriarchy in here, or remove patriarchy out of their system, that's the healing work. Then this new systems can be born through women, through the feminine. and men holding space for it. Also, it's not about women against men, but this necessity to really birth the feminine. And that means to make space for these new ways of being that we might not even know how they go.
Yeah. There's two ways I look at it. In fact, there's probably lots of ways I look at it, but there's two really easy to visualize ways of looking at it. One is like the river of the soul. The river of the soul has been dammed multiple times. Like there's dam after dam after dam. Like one of the hardest things for me about moving to America was discovering that almost every river is dammed multiple times here, and they're all turned on and off, so they go up and down. Like being in a river that's rising, it's just like, what on earth's going on? And it was just like, oh no, they're doing a release. And I'm like, you mean this isn't a wild river? And it's like, no, this is not a wild river. And it was just like, wow, okay, well, that's what's been done to women. I mean, actually, truthfully, it's what's been done to everybody, men and women and everybody in between, that is alive right now, because we've been so conditioned into the patriarchal format of what value is and what is acceptable and how a human is supposed to fit into a system that is essentially sick. But what I realized with the dams is the river is the river. You can't get away from the river. Like the river is the soul. The soul is perfect and complete, unharmed. But then there's how we've coped with the traumas that we've been going through. And it's just like, okay, I need to shut that part off. I need to shut that part off. This is too much. This is too much. Oh, let's hide this. And so the dams that we're dammed up with are also our own energy. Like we've done the damming. And so it's like the river gets less and less available to us because we've become so modified and compromised. But we're the mortar and we're the bricks. And so that process of undamming ourselves or reclaiming ourselves, like nobody else can do it for us. It's like we have to become aware of where we're held back, how much that affects us, whether we're willing to keep living that way, and then do the work of dismantling our own obstructions to our own power. And you know, the internalized patriarchy, we've all got it. It's just like how we've sucked up the system in order to be acceptable in a world that has these codes that make no sense in accordance with life and living systems. And the other way I look at it is the light of your own soul. The light of you is like this irrepressible brilliance that is source or spirit. And then there's these like Russian dolls, or like the containment, or the veils, the stains, the energetic structures that our light is trying to shine through, and we're trying to come home to the light that we are. And I feel like when you turn towards yourself, everything that's between you and yourself is debris. You could call it the dams in the river, or you could call it the stains that we've internalized. And physiologically, that's our epigenetics. You know, this isn't mine. This belongs to my lineage. This is an encodement of DNA with all the on-off genes that are the history of my lineage. And then there's my soul that is sitting in it. So my soul light is illuminating the epigenetic story of my ancestors right here. There's nothing I can do to get away from that. So there's a basin full of inherited trauma that's there, and gifts as well. But my experience now is when I can come back to the light that I am, and I can become aware enough of that to feel where it's pressing up against where I'm not. So the lies that are internalized, that is everything other than we are love and we are source, we are perfect. Anything that's not that is a lie. Then when you remove your energy from the stains or the debris and you bring it back to the source of who you are, when you bring it back to the depth of your own self, this dissolves. It dissolves, it changes. And we don't get to control what happens to that. We get to control how deeply connected to ourselves we are. And that seems to determine the rate of dissolution or liberation out of what we're not. So I think the homecoming or the invitation is to really be so aware that the world that we're living in is a representation of profound woundedness, born of dissociation and fracturing, and to be able to see it and to kind of pull our energy out, like to divest, to not buy into it, to not buy into the manipulation and the fear mongering and the warmongering and all the mongering, and just to be able to look at it and go, okay, wow, look at that. That's a play. That's a play of the stains. That's the stains, like, against each other. That's not me. That's not us. That's not what we are. That's an expression of a large amount of undigested pain. Okay, well, what's my job in that? My job is to understand how my pain hooks into that and gets dragged in and gets subsumed. How I make that conscious enough to disengage, come back to the love that I am, and be able to approach all of that from a place of connected love. And then create this different currency, which is a conscious love over here. And then use that to create like a magnetic vortex, like a vortex that is spinning in a way that calls to it more of the love, to self-strengthen. And that's where, I was just helping to open a goddess conference that was originating out of the Tibetan myth that I heard before I created Treesisters, which is when 1,000 goddesses gather, the divine feminine will rebirth through their combined energies, and the frequency of the planet will shift from one of fear to one of love. And so there's this ancient Tibetan myth or invitation that says when enough conscious women dissolve the ego sufficiently to merge, you can become a gateway for the birthing of a completely next octave. I mean, God knows how many octaves up of the sacred feminine principle that is alive in all of us, can bridge in and create a different reality. And the Kogi, Colombian Kogi indigenous leaders will say that only that originates out of feminine principles will survive the end of 2026. And from then on, it's a different world. It's going to be a hell of a different world. Anyway, so as women, taking responsibility for, it's not a word, but I call it the resacredization of the feminine, like our conscious claiming of what is essentially deep cosmic and earthly feminine power, life force, as sacred, like that being the core of our awareness of what we are, that starts to change everything. And that's where we need each other. That's where it's in sisterhood. That's where it's the forest floor of roots woven together. We hold each other and we become that gateway to a higher consciousness that is waiting for us to wake up to who we really are and who she is.
Notice my sadness of my longing for that to go faster, and I guess it's not able to accelerate it other than showing up. And every one woman showing up really makes a difference. So appreciate that you're showing up for that.
Well, to the world, I've disappeared, but actually, in myself, I'm showing up for myself, for her, for I'm embodying the possibility of crawling out from underneath my own massively internalized patriarch. I mean, I was the monster, that journey of self-liberating, of being able to understand, I am not that. We are not that. We're not that. We're not what we've been taught. We're not what we've been cultured into. It's nothing to do with who and what we are, actually. And I think it's a pretty scary time to be alive, but I think it's an incredible time to be alive. Like, it doesn't get more edgy than this. And I mean, 2 years from now, it'll be decidedly more edgy, but nevertheless, it's like we're in the birth canal. And where we go from here really is determined by the courage that we have to go inside and reclaim ourselves. Like our own capacity to tune ourselves to the frequency of our choice, as opposed to the default manipulative chaos that we're swimming in. It's just lies, as far as I can make out. There is access to truth in here. Like, our hearts are woven into the mainframe of creation, and the mainframe is about to get very, very interesting. And the mainframe includes, a galactic, like, we're not alone in the universe. No way are we alone in the universe. And that's been my experience since childhood. So it's like I'm super clear because I've lived it, but it's coming. Like, the world, it's like there's a rupture, and the off-planet civilizations they're around. I mean, you just have to look up in the sky at night. They're around, and they're increasing their presence. So like, there's a cosmic birthing that's also happening for our planet. And we're here for that. We've chosen to be here for that. So it's a very intense time to be alive for all of us. Very, very intense time to be alive.
Yeah, and then we get to choose. Do we say yes to the intensity, or do we numb ourselves to it? And it was like one thing that you spoke of in the 2020, I think, Batgap interview was that you heard a friend say to her son, women are learning to do magic. And I related that to the journey that you're on, that the magic is really in here. It's about this connecting to the source that each of us is, and then being connected to unseen forces and honoring that, and making use of all the resources there are beyond our humanness.
Now, I was told by a channel, God, back in 2015, I think it was, and they basically said they were beings from the future. Amazing talking to them, actually. But they said, Claire, if you don't stop, you're going to be dead in 3 weeks. This was like, I mean, my health was already really compromised back then. If you don't stop judging your species, you're going to be dead in 3 weeks. And that requires you to stop looking at everything that is dead and dying, all the different systems that are struggling, everything that is going extinct. Like, you have to literally pull your attention out of that, because you're poisoning your body with it, and you need to start looking at everything that is growing and healing and regenerating. You've got to hook back in to the energies of health on the planet, or you will die. And I'd never been so kind of like, it was literally, hello, can we be frank with you? You've got 3 weeks to live. I mean, it was just like, boom, like smack. You're like, whoa, I'm not used to channeling anything being quite that in your face. But that very strong message of, you need to divest your attention from everything that is dying, and you need to invest your attention into everything that is regenerating and healing, was such a powerful, powerful pivot point, learning point. And, learning how to, because it's not denial. It's not, okay, everything's peachy, I'm just going to look at what's growing. It's like, it's all still there, but it's learning how to arrange your awareness that you can be with it without being flooded with it, without like digesting it into yourself. It's like, it's there. Everything that's going on in the world, I can see it. I'm present to it. I'm not in denial about it. I'm not looking away from it. And we've got to be very careful what we eat, you know, emotionally, mentally, because we're making ourselves out of all the input that's coming in. So unless you can filter the input and bring in what's nourishing, then we're gonna get poisoned. And so this word really struck me again when you said it, the choice, like what we're choosing, where we orient, what we plug into, what is out there that is strengthening when we with discernment, with that innate body wisdom that knows, that can feel, this drops my energy, this lifts my energy. Like how we value ourselves enough not to let ourselves get sucked down into the morass, and actually to grow the muscles of such radical levels of self-care, like discernment. Energetic discernment is such a ground of actual self-care. You know, there's all the resting and the whatever else that we need to do in order to recover ourselves. But the awareness, the tuning fork, the what is healthy for me right now, what is nourishing for me right now, what regenerates me right now. They also told me that I was a proxy for Gaia, that I was running my life as an experiment to see how far can you push a human body before it dies? How far can you push a planet before it's so far gone there's no reclaiming her? And so I've also, you know, because I've gone through what she's gone through, the rape of the earth, the poisoning of the earth, like what she's gone through, my body has very much gone through. I've done it very loudly. And so then it's really has been a case of, okay, when you've got an almost full system collapse going on, how do you, like, is it possible to pull this body back? Can I bring myself back? And just even in the last 2 weeks, I mean, I've been sick with another round of COVID, but even during that time, I was just like, okay, I'm so damn sick. That means my system is open. That means I am available for change. That means the fevers can pull stuff out. I did it right over solstice. So I'm sick at the most powerful time of the year, major full moon. It was like, okay, I'm going to like trauma work my way through this illness. I'm going to use the disintegratory assistance of illness to purge. And my body, until I was in my mid-20s, couldn't sweat at all. Like that system was shut down. Then I did a Vipassana 10-day meditation retreat, and on day 8 I had a massive breakthrough and I started to sweat a little bit. And so I have sweated a little bit all my life, like just enough to sort of, my mother would say, glow, you know, just to become a little bit dewy. But you put me in a sauna, I would never drip. Like dripping was not in my repertoire. And in the middle of this illness and the trauma work that I was doing, I was remembering a past life where I was skinned alive as a woman. And that trauma of losing my skin was what was preventing me from sweating. And so I went through this healing process over a course of trauma sessions where I grew my skin back. The second I grew my skin back, I started sweating like a waterfall, like a frigging waterfall. Like I sit in the sauna now, I put my head down and I have water dripping off my eyelashes, like drip, 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 drip. And I was just like, I've got the river of my skin back. Like who knew that what was inhibiting that? Like my body couldn't detox. It was part of the reason why I was so poisoned. My body couldn't detox. Okay, I was able to follow back into the system that was damned. I was able to take down the dam with my awareness, and the river started flowing immediately. Like, it's an enormous change. This is the biggest organ in my body. It is now fully functioning. I am detoxing like a fiend. I can sweat. And it's like, yeah, this is the truth about the nature of things. When there is sufficient consciousness, sufficient willingness, a deep enough choice to recovery of like some massive system in my body, just come online overnight, literally overnight. Now, it's not overnight because there's been an awful lot of trauma work to get to the place where I was ready and strong enough to deal with that, because that was gnarly. But there it is, recovery, like night and day, an hour apart. So I look at the regeneration of my own body that's going on, the strength of it, the amount of consciousness it's taking, the choicefulness that it's taking. And it's just like, yeah, we have no idea what we're capable of. Like, we are so powerful, and I've been doing that largely solo. I mean, I've got an amazing support system around me, but when women gather, like really gather and really choose and really understand who we are and really tap in and allow that greater energy to come through us, we could change the surface of this planet. That was why I did Treesisters in the first place. I know it's true. When women come back into our power collectively, there had to be a reason why we had 300 years of witch burnings. Like, the fear of feminine power on this planet is so damn strong. Well, she's not going to allow it to stay suppressed. It's against life. If life is stronger than male egos, it's stronger than patriarchy. Like, we don't understand why we have to go through these cycles, why that was a necessary part of our evolution with patriarchy. But we're coming out of it. We're in the death throes of it. That's why it's so ugly right now. It's trying to dissolve itself. I believe that. Because it's not true. The truth is, the masculine bows to the feminine and the feminine bows to the masculine, and there is this beautiful union between the two. That's the truth. That's what we're going home to. We have to go home to it because that's the truth of life, and truth will always win, ultimately.
It's also the pull or push of evolution, right? Like, it moves towards that. And I'm also convinced of that. And what an aspect that I'm noticing as you speak is also this shadow, the necessity of the shadow work, where women have played along. I have played along in patriarchy. Every woman, and without women supporting patriarchy or making ourselves small, in whichever way we've supported patriarchy, it wouldn't exist. So there is this also this transformation force in our own unconscious. I heard you mention that before, that it's about becoming conscious. And I believe that you know a bit about shadow work. Do you have anything to say about that?
I have so much experience of shadow work at this point. My life has been a life of recovery, right, really, from my upbringing. And it's been a lot more shadow than light, frankly. But I sometimes refer to the suppressed parts of ourselves as our own internal prison system. Like, we've got this horrendous, military industrial prison system on our planet. Well, we've got them inside ourselves as well. We've got all the parts of us, and I'm really including our epigenetics in this because it's encoded in us. All the parts of our ancestry where we have gone through things that we cannot cope with. And so we have suppressed them and coped over the top. All the lies, all the deceits, all the horrors, all the just horror that what humanity is capable of doing. And massive difficulty, massive difficulty. And, we haven't had a culture on this planet that knows how to. No, I'm telling a lie. We have had cultures on this planet. It's like when you hear Pat McCabe, amazing Dine light warrior, woman stands shining. when you hear her talk about her culture, the Native American cultures, the First Nations of this continent, who believed in original beauty rather than original sin, and who, if somebody went off the rails, it was considered a community issue because the community had failed them sufficiently that they started misbehaving. And so rather than being sent away to jail, they would be brought back into community, and the community would take responsibility for helping them reconnect to their original beauty. The sin was a collective failing. And so the community came back into healing to help the individual heal back to their original beauty. When I first heard her talk about that, I bawled my eyes out. It was like, oh my God, there it is. Like over here, we've got the Western worlds. It's sin. You're born into sin. You live sin. And then if you're lucky, you get to go to heaven. Meanwhile, we're going to incarcerate the most traumatized people on our planet who can't manage their pain. And so they're acting out, but so inside each of us, or inside myself, I'll speak for myself, I just found I used to call it like the mansion of myself with all these different wings, and they were all walled off, and I'd like locked the doors and then I'd wallpapered over them. It's like, they don't exist. This doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. But they do. These agonized parts of us that are lurking around, devoid of all love, with our rampant self-rejection going on, that just pushes up against them. So they're looping in their misery constantly. And then it's just like, oh my God, I'm feeling this again. And I've got this going on and this again. It's just like, yeah, they're screaming for love. These parts of us are screaming for love. And we're so afraid of accepting the shadow in ourselves in case it takes over, in case it's the whole truth about ourselves, in case we never recover from it and we cry forever. It's just like, it doesn't work that way. Parts of us that are walled off, that have been rejected, are parts of us that carry pain that is essentially, I believe anyway, in my experiences, an absence of love. It's just an absence of love. Like there's the whole octave of lovelessness that goes all the way from like depression to homicidal, horrificness, like I'm going to strap bombs to my body and take down a school. It's like, that's a person in severe pain. That's a person whose pain is so severe, only killing others in the most horrendous way even begins to scratch that itch, and everything in between. And I have a killer inside me. I've had that desire when I've watched people beat children in front of me. I could pick up a gun. It's like, okay, so nobody else can come in here and do the work of making conscious all the dissociated, fractured off parts of myself that have been sitting in lovelessness, possibly for time immemorial through my epigenetics. The only person who's capable of flooding enough love in here to be able to unlock those chains and bring those parts of me into conscious awareness where I can listen and understand and flood them with love and bring them back in so that the fracturing in here dissolves into a unification that then allows the light of my own soul to shine through something that is coherent, so that I have the option to bring a coherence to life through whatever I create from here on in, rather than something that is trying to be coherent or trying to look coherent, but actually is always going to be fractured, because you don't get to choose what your light shines through. It shines through whatever you are. And if it's full of fractures and shadow and undigested trauma, that's what you're going to bring to the world. And you're going to bring it not because you're bad, you're going to bring it because it's asking to be made conscious. So to me, shadow work is like, it's the way home. It's the way back to wholeness. It's the way back to health. It's the way back to a wholesome, unified world. Because everything that we express or create in this world is a reflection of what's going on inside. And so unless that work is done, unless we can bring ourselves back into coherence, we're only ever going to create more incoherence. So there's like this moment now of like, wow, can it get any worse than this? Like, well, maybe we're just creating a situation so difficult that's like in our faces especially with climate change and the extinction crisis. The politics over here in this country, whoa, it's like we want to see it. We want to transform it. We want to. We wouldn't be making it this loud for ourselves otherwise. So I feel like, it's the way home. It's like, don't be afraid, or at least that's pointless to say. Everybody's afraid of their shadows, but understand that it's lovelessness inviting love, and that the more we can touch into that shadow, the greater our heart's capacity for compassion becomes, the more we can hold the world as it is in a peaceful place of compassionate, non-reactive love, which I think is our way out. But it has to start with ourselves. So then it becomes, can you find enough support to be able to give yourself the gift of recovering yourself? Can you value yourself enough to go find the support that's needed to recover yourself? That's the question.
Thank you, Claire. Perfect question to end with. Thank you so much for this download.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for giving me space to be the river.
Imagine that you could become so radically alive that you would create not only the life that you love, but also the culture that comes through you, that your being is designed to create. This is what this Agecast is about. This is what this Agecast aims to inspire in you as you listen to this right now. And this could be a daunting thing. And daunting is not a problem. Daunting simply means it's new, it's scary, and why not do it anyway? This is where evolution lies. Evolution is there where the fear is. So we're inviting you to join us on this journey and make it your own. You can do this by, keep diving into these free episodes, the episodes that we're gifting from a place of abundance and necessity. And you can also become a member, benefiting from some special content that we upload in the membership area. But really, the membership portal is for you to take more responsibility so that we can keep creating this content. And if you were willing to step even closer into the circle, you could join our in-person live offerings online. There are many transformative workshops and trainings that are on offer from various radically alive women across the globe. And you can find all of our offerings on our website, radicallyalivewomen.com. This Agecast is brought to you by Radically Alive Women, a team of women consisting currently of Julia Neumann, Millicent Hoey, Annika Korsten, and Hannah Abuzara. See you soon.